First Spin. Welcome to First Spin, a show where I learn about how to use the parallax propeller without having any prior programming experience. And rather than do this on my own, I have enlisted the help of two road tripping experts.
I'm a road trip expert?
Yes. At this point, you are totally a road trip expert.
Okay.
We have
But
gone.
that's not what the show is about.
True. All right, fine. Two parallax propeller experts.
Kind of what this show's about. I mean, we're road tripping to
parallax
to do
conference
spin stuff, and yeah.
I am totally psyched up for hacking time. I have projects in my brain right now. Are you
for the Friday
Yes.
hack thing? Yeah.
Yes.
I plan on trying to have something to work on.
Yes. If not, then you can help me.
I am not going to bring anything with me.
Whisker's not going to bring us
because I know it's going to happen. I'm going to go in that room.
and he's going to start chatting.
It's going to, Bo Schwabe's going to talk my ear off for 4 hours straight. It's going to be awesome.
I'm probably going to be in that similar boat. So
Oh, guys.
I'll bring stuff, but I'm not going to.
You probably
plan
shouldn't
on-
bring as much stuff as you did last time. You brought a
Yeah.
lot of stuff.
And I got stuff
I
carrying
always
it.
get like that. I think, man, I can work on this or that or this or that, and I just bring everything because it'll all fit in the trunk, right?
Right.
Yeah,
in
that
the
was the
backseat.
mistake we made with our first road trip out to California.
Oh,
We thought we were going to
really?
do a whole bunch of stuff. And when you're on a road trip, the first day or so, you're like, yeah, I'm going to do a whole bunch of stuff. And then you very quickly realize that the fun isn't in doing all this stuff. It's in
Not.
the journey and the
Right.
exploring the country and meeting new people and eating good food and all that sort
and
of thing.
saying, "Hi, Roy. I've met you. I mean, we've known each other for the past 2 years, but this is the
Right.
first time we've met in person." So
Well, that was the last time.
that's right. It was last time.
So when
This
we went
time-
on our second trip out, we took basically nothing, and we just
we still took some
and you
stuff.
didn't come see me. punks.
well, no, you had already moved up north.
I know. Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
you had
We
already
were
moved up.
closer to San Diego then on that trip than we'd ever been,
Right.
but you were gone.
It was horrible.
well,
You left us.
I
the Pacific
didn't
Northwest, no
leave
less.
you. I went somewhere better.
Right.
You went to a better place.
So that's where we're going to go this trip around. Anyway, guys, do register as well as reserve your hotel room. We're staying at the Staybridge, and
That's the best place.
it's the
We've
best.
already got our room, so you guys
Yes.
can register yours now too.
Right.
Yeah, I got
Um,
mine.
I've got, we're set on ours, so if too many people try to get rooms now, we're good.
Right. Can't kick us out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So that's May 4th,
correct.
and May 3rd is the hack
The
day
Hack Fest,
ahead of time.
which is going to be so much
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
really excited about that. I'm glad I got Brad's spin tool working, so I can program stuff. Cause
on your Mac.
yes, well, it was.
I'll
just-
be
it was
bringing my
horrible
laptop
before.
with me.
Yeah, your laptop's horrible. I can't stand it. It's like half the size of my MacBook.
It's awesome. It's
I
tiny.
can't program
it's
worth-
chibi.
worth
It's not a
buckets.
laptop. It's like a knee top.
Right. Right. Exactly.
It's so
A
cute.
little itty bitty.
a wrist top.
It's
I mean,
perfect
my
for road
fingers are
trip
too big to
computer
type
because it's
on
so
it.
small.
people are like, "Where is the propeller in all this?" Okay, so
The
anyway,
propeller is in Rockland, where we're going.
right, where
Yes.
you should go to.
Where all the listeners are going.
Right.
If
I
you're
hope
not
so.
going, just turn this off now.
Well, I don't know about that. I did a lot of work. This is
I
so.
wouldn't say that. There's some people that might not be able to make it out.
Do those people really count?
That's
I mean,
horrible.
Yeah,
really?
well,
Red is listening, and he can't make
some
it
of them,
in from
some of
Canada.
them will go to the.
Red
to the
could come if he
Prince-
wanted to. If he really decided he wanted to come down, he could. He could talk to his boss and be like, in a very
there'll be
polite
people
way,
going
because
to
he's
the
Canadian.
propeller-
I'm not coming to work that weekend. I am going to Rockland, California,
You're in-
because everyone in the universe who is cool is going to Rockland, California that weekend.
Right.
on May 4th. Yeah.
Yep.
There'll be a bunch of people though that go to the one in the summer that's over in the east.
I
coast.
won't be there, so those people also do not count.
Well, it's the propeller powered thing that OBC will be running. So
Oh, I see.
OBC kind of counts because he's a cool dude. But
I think he fully counts, not just kind of counts.
All right.
So he's
Done a
but he's
lot for the-
coming. He's coming to
he will almost definitely be at
OPC.
OPC.
Will Gadget Gangster be at OPC?
I
Nick?
have no idea.
We
Haven't
hung out
heard
with
from
him
him.
last
I haven't
time.
talked to
I
Nick in
know.
a while.
Well, no one's talked to him in a while.
I met Nick for the first time at the last
Gadget
one.
Gangster, where are
Yeah.
you? Where'd you go?
I got to hang out with him a bunch there. It was fun.
Okay, so last time we had a episode, I had been enmeshed in KiCad and in PCB fabs and whatever. And then now that I'm waiting for all my PCBs to come back, I actually got a chance to do some coding. So, and of course, coding equals questions. And so
Yeah.
that's where you guys come in.
Sadly.
Awesomely. So the Switch and GPS thing that I've got going on. Last time you told me I could make it easier by putting labels, like specifically instead of numbers, right?
Right.
And-
It makes it easier to read the code and see what it's doing.
Right. So I actually made two versions. I've only shown you one right now. The first version was me setting in the con section black : equals 1, yellow : equals 2, like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was one thing that I did, and then I put color in the button push, color : equals black, right?
Right.
But at that time, you see where my center button is, so you press up, down, left, right to select which color you
start.
want, and then you click
AB,
the
AB.
5 position switch to actually send that color. And
Right.
one of my goals was to try to send the actual color, not just a number, right? So that in the serial terminal it'd be more readable. So
Right.
I went from that where the colors were set in the con section to where I treated them like data strings
Yeah.
or data pointers, I suppose.
Right. To
Which
the
is-
string that you want to send.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I
So
have
they're labels.
here.
I see.
So which project is this for? The one where you walk around and you see like
Dead people.
how people are
Yeah.
injured, and you push the 5 position switch to say how injured they are,
Mm-hmm.
and it records GPS data
Mm-hmm.
about where you're at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
So with this, the way I've done it, is that workable? Is that how you guys you
yeah.
were thinking?
Well, it wasn't what I was thinking, but it's actually decent and a good solution for what you want, because you want the text to be output, and it works out. The main issue, I guess, with what you've got there is that if you wanted to send a number as well,
Mm-hmm.
then you would have to have a translation, or send the number as well, like, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Because currently, like, your system is designed, I'm not sure in your whole overall package, like, we haven't really discussed that. You were talking about having something that you would hold that has the GPS in it,
Mm-hmm.
with the button thing that you would push whatever way to set the current color,
Right.
and then you'd center, you push the button in the middle, and it causes it to save that color with the GPS data.
Right.
Now, does it send it like over XB or wireless, or just save it and
So this
print
is
it out?
this is the thing. Like, I've tested. You remember my zombie bait project?
Vaguely.
Okay, so the zombie bait
While
project
ago.
was like a little doll stuffed animal with
Mhm.
like the emic in it and a prop BOE, and it had an
Mhm.
XB module on it. And then I had a little controller again with a 5 position switch, and depending on where you selected up, down, left, right, and then pressed enter, that clicked,
Right.
that would give you a different saying that would transmit to the emic, or
Okay.
would yeah, okay.
Didn't I
So you're
program that
thinking
one?
of it being, you're thinking of the end product being like, you're carrying this small little device, and it has like an XB radio, and it sends a signal, the string, over to a computer that has another XB that just prints out the messages.
Maybe. I'm also actually thinking of incorporating an SD card with it so that it writes to the SD card, and
Okay.
then you can download the SD card and have another piece of software that actually analyzes all those points. Because
Right. So it could just be like it could save the strings as a log into a
Right.
text file.
right.
And then you could go read that on a computer, and it could use like Google Maps and
Right.
put in the longitude and latitude, and it would put a point there. And
Precisely.
okay,
Yep.
I get it.
Yep.
But it's still, one way or another, the data is going to get transmitted to another device,
Right.
another computer somehow.
Right.
So this
But yeah,
device
so-
is just a locker.
Right. It's like
So,
it's
yeah.
a glorified clicker is what I thought of it as, right?
So it would write, the longitude and latitude, and then this string of, black, expectant, yellow, delayed,
Right.
green, minimal, and red, immediate.
Right.
Okay, so that seems totally
Like
reasonable.
it works. Okay.
Yeah. So the other way that it could have been done, which might be another way, like if it were the one where you had the XB sending a signal
Mm-hmm.
to another device
Mm-hmm.
that received it, it would probably be better to send that as a number.
Okay, sure.
Just because then it's a simpler
It's
thing,
easier
and
to read
it could possibly even have a protocol where it repeats the number a few times, just so in case there's an error,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other side could receive and do some error correction. I mean, it gets a little complicated, but a number is also going to go much quicker. Like you're just going to send a single byte,
Mm-hmm.
for the data, and maybe repeat it a few times. And
I
then
see.
the other side could take the number and turn it into whatever string you wanted.
That makes sense. So
Right.
actually, my original code was fine.
Right. Either way works, actually. I mean, it's just two different ways to solve the problem, and that's something that happens a lot in code, is that you'll find that there's more than one way to solve the same problem.
Right.
And it's not that any one way is better than another. Some are and some aren't. It
Mhm.
just depends on what your goal is. So it's helpful to define what you want it to do
Sure.
as the end goal to help you figure out the best way to achieve the goal.
Okay.
So
Cool. So I just wanted
this
to.
way, the way that you've got it, I'm looking at the code here, and the people can see the link
Mm-hmm.
in the show description, where it's got the the label is the color,
Right.
and it labels the string, which is the color plus the description,
Right.
expectant, delayed, whatever, is perfectly fine solution.
Okay.
It's a good solution for what you're attempting to do here, which is just print out the color and print out the location. And your example of having it write it to like a text file on a SD card would be a good example. And then you just like click it and then take it back and plug it into the computer, and it could read out the file. And
Eddie
And I think
is
that might be my next thing.
pantomiming at me while you're talking.
Celebratory gestures.
She's cheering for herself
right.
exuberantly.
That's because it's
Yeah.
there's multiple ways of doing it, and I managed to find 2 different ones, and so I'm very happy.
Yeah, and me and Whisker should be cheering because we managed to teach you well enough to figure that stuff out.
True.
I've been putting the older episodes of First Spin up on our YouTube channel, which you can find at tymkrs.com. There's a link to it there. And going back to like episodes 1 through 10, listening to
How was
how absolutely unknowledgeable Addie was at the beginning. It's pretty shocking. If you're up to episode 62 here of the show and you've been listening to it, go back, listen to the first couple on YouTube, and you'll hear Addie ask questions like, "What is a pin?
Do I really?
What's that? What's a pin for? What do you do with that?
Really?
Yeah. What's a variable?
I know what variables are.
You
I-
do
You
now.
do now.
62 episodes in. You better.
I remember the what's a variable conversation.
What? I gotta listen to this. This should be interesting.
We're
You're in
still
that-
kind of
in
on
that-
the what's a variable thing with your bite. You know, we're creating the infrastructure so that you really understand what a variable is.
Those are registers. Registers are different.
They're not,
Register
though.
with the alias is a.
Shush.
The thing is that ultimately on the computer, everything that is a data element or variable
Mm-hmm.
will go through a register most of the time
Mm-hmm.
in some form or another. On the prop, every piece of memory that the execution unit touches
Mm-hmm.
in the cog, those are all registers. So all 512 longs that you put your code in and your data in, they're all registers.
Yeah. And I was trying to explain to Addie the other day when we were just sitting around talking about this stuff, as we were apt to do. I was explaining to her that you can get to the what you would think of as registers in the prop. You can get to them right through the memory addresses because they're mapped.
Right. Yeah. The prop 2 has some that are hidden and it's different. They have special instructions to access them, which is
Oh.
going to be very similar to what you're doing in the byte.
Bite.
I see.
There's a whole bunch of internal hidden registers for like the multiply and divide and Cortex stuff where you use instructions to set the values for the multiplier and the multiplicand and
Multiplicand.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
and then you do you try to get the result and that's what triggers doing the actual multiply and then you read out the results from the internal hidden register into a visible register.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
Right.
definitely look forward to. I'm a little scared of the prop 2 because I'm just now starting to kind of get the hang of prop 1 in my limited capacity.
Yep.
And there you go, folks. That's where we're at.
Episode.
But
60
the
whatever.
thing I mean I wouldn't be afraid because while it has all these cool newfangled fancy features,
Mm-hmm.
it's still got the same basic architecture and the same basic setup, so it'll be very familiar and a
Sure.
lot of what you do will be very much the same.
It's still like
It'll
walking
just go
around in Chip's
faster.
head. So, you know,
Yeah.
his head hasn't changed that much. It's probably going to be pretty familiar.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean you still have the cogs and it's still only 512 longs and
Gotcha.
your program has to fit in there and run and it just goes a lot faster and then there's this extra stuff alongside that you can take advantage of.
Gotcha. Okay, so the next piece of code I wanted to talk about was actually byte.
Well,
Just had flashbacks to having to edit out Roy's coughs when he had like walking pneumonia for 6 months. Ugh.
so hold on, let's continue on this whole GPS thing because
Oh,
you were
sure.
telling me you had a bit of an issue with your GPS setup.
Right. Yeah, so my GPS, I've
Used to
gotten this
work.
working a bajillion times. So
At least 2 or 3 other times.
right. So I mean,
Except
I
that
know.
one time when you were using an altimeter module
No,
instead of the
that-
GPS.
No, instead of the compass module. They look the
Mm.
same.
It was-
But the GPS looks completely different.
Mm.
Yeah, GPS looks completely different.
That makes it okay.
I'm just saying. Anyways, so the GPS module, there's like a whole bunch of different wires, and according to learn.parallax.com, all you have to do is really connect power, ground, and one of the wires, the yellow one, to
which is the
pin 7. Right.
serial receive line.
Well, transmit from GPS.
It's receive for you. It's transmit for the GPS side.
Right, because the GPS is
Yeah.
transmitting to you the prop.
Yeah,
So I did that, and when I run my code, like the button presses work,
Right.
but then the
All your locations are
they're dashes. So like it depends on what I'm asking for, right? So if it's a date, then it gives me -1. If it's like an altitude or something, I think it gives me a 0. And then
Yeah.
if it's the latitude longitude, it gives me dash dash dash.
Well, right, but that's because the code is just doing that when it's not a valid thing. So, like when you're reading the latitude or the longitude, if the value it gets back from the GPS is uh, float, not a number, float
Mm-hmm.
nan,
Right, then it'll
uh,
give dash
then
dash
it'll
dash.
just print out the dashes, and that's just because it's getting invalid data.
Right.
And what it sounds like is there's like a few different things it could be. The first one, which I always assume with you because it's usually true, is that you'll have it wired incorrectly.
Okay.
Um, but you've gone over that many times.
Right.
The second one is just that the code doesn't line up with the wiring. So, like, you have it wired correctly, but to pin 8 or 9, and the code is on pin 7, right?
Well,
That's one
that would still be
possibility.
wiring though.
Well, not necessarily because you might have had to modify the code to get it to match
Okay.
the pins on the wiring, and maybe you did the wiring correctly based on the description, but then you didn't edit the code correctly.
Right.
That
So
that
so then in order to make sure I didn't do that, I actually re-downloaded GPS Float Light,
uh-huh.
which is where that pin is set in its like con section, I think.
Right,
And then
right.
I copied that over. I saved it over the copy that I
Right,
had in the
right.
library, and it's
Yep.
still
Right. So then there's a couple other things. Um, well, there's one more in the wiring one, which is that the yellow wire that you're using
mm-hmm.
might have a break in it and might not be getting good contact. So you could test that with your multimeter, the
Oh.
continuity of the yellow wire to the point on the GPS
I
with
think
no
I
power connected,
I think I
obviously,
put a scope to it, actually. But with
to see
power.
the signal.
Yeah.
So then there's a couple other things that are not quite so good. Obviously, one option is that the GPS module isn't really working right.
Right.
Um, the other one is that the pin that you have it plugged into on the prop is somehow burnt out
Messed
or
up.
fried, which could happen on the prop the way that it's architected. You could end up with just one pin being bad,
Hmm.
even though the rest of the whole thing works.
Okay.
Um, both of those are not quite that likely. There's a couple other things that it could be. There are like half a dozen different GPS modules, several of which Parallax has sold
Yeah.
over time,
Yeah.
and they might have different default configurations, like
Okay.
for what baud rate they talk at or what mode they start up in.
Well, so that's another thing
And,
that I tried, right? I took a prop plug and then I grounded, I attached the grounds to each other. I did the yellow line, the transmit from the GPS, put it into the prop plug's receive, right? And
Mhm.
the default baud rate for the GPS itself is 4800. So I put my serial terminal, set it to 4800, and I didn't get the dashes and such. I just got nothing. Like nothing showed up on any of the COM ports.
Well, right, the dashes are just because
That's how it's
the
reading
it's
through like
That's
the
the
float string.
driver error
so
trapping
the
it.
way that
Right.
the way that the GPS works, okay, is that when you turn it on and it gets signal and syncs to all the satellites and it's ready,
Mm-hmm.
it starts outputting at regular intervals a string,
NMEA string. Yep.
right, in it, and it's a formatted a certain way with all the data encoded in it, and it just repeatedly outputs that string
Right.
every second or every half second or whatever the interval is.
Right.
And then the driver code that you're using is just receiving that string
And parsing it
from the
into a
serial,
understandable
and then
language.
parsing it
Right.
into all the values that are encoded in the string.
Right.
And then you're calling little functions that give you each of the different values and printing out the results. And because it's somehow not getting the string or not getting a valid string, you're getting your dashes because your code is just saying, "Oh, you gave me an invalid value. I'm going to print dashes instead."
Right.
Um, so there's a couple things. Is like I said, if the GPS is maybe not the same one that was used in the learn.parallax,
It was.
uh, I'm just throwing it out
Yeah.
there as a
For
possibility.
others, just in
That
case.
then it might have a different default setting.
Okay.
Another thing that maybe has happened, I don't know if you've ever used this GPS and hooked up the TX line and sent commands to it to switch it into different modes. is that if you've done that, it might not be in the mode that it needs to be in to be sending the correct strings.
Mm-hmm.
So you might need to hook it up more elaborately with the, get the full
With the
serial
others,
thing
right.
going and read more about the actual module and see if you can send it commands to switch it into different modes or try different baud rates because it might be at a higher or lower baud rate
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because of changing a setting.
I might
So that's
change and see if it's different on my Mac too. Because the last time I used it, I'm pretty sure I used it on my Mac, but this time I was trying to test it on my on my PC.
yeah. Except that
I don't
that
know if
shouldn't really
that's.
matter because it's hooked up to the prop
Mm,
directly, right? It's not hooked up to the computer.
true.
Um, but
Yeah.
that's something to definitely try before you like assume
The worst.
the worst
Right.
is just try seeing if you can maybe also try a different prop um to see if it works with a different prop and then that might identify it as being the pin being bad
Okay.
on a particular prop.
I could try that.
Um
Yeah.
and like I said, double check the yellow wire to make sure it's actually getting a signal coming out that looks
Yeah.
like serial signal data.
I got.
You'll see
Well,
square waves going by.
that's the thing. We did not see square waves going by when we
Yeah, so
when
that
we put it on the scope. We saw like waves, like gentle rolling English waves, but not like sine wave either. It was like very damped.
well, that was probably just noise then,
Right.
or is
But
you
it was
guys?
at 1.2 volts, give or
So
take.
so I have to ask this because I happen to know that one of the scopes you have is like really old
Yeah.
and really slow.
Yeah.
Was it that really old, really slow scope? Because it might
Yes.
not have been able to read the signal rate if it was, like if the baud rate was set high enough.
Well, at 4800, it was.
At 4800, we'll see at 4800, it's, yeah, I mean, it might work.
So what? Yeah.
It might,
So what we did to
You're not going
test
to be
it.
able to see it clearly, but you should be able to see that it's bouncing between the high and the lows.
right,
Even if the pulses are very short, you'd still be able to see just the hashiness of it.
Right.
right.
So I mean, like I think with ours, it was really weird because it was the serial receive line. I think that you could see some funky sawtooth wave sort of thing, but the TTL transmit line, which is the yellow one that we were measuring,
Right.
showed. So the serial
That's
one was showing like a 5-volt measurement. The TTL yellow line was showing around 1.2 volts.
You see, that's weird.
I
It
know.
should either be 0 or, 3.3,
Right.
because I think the output on that one is 3.3 volt
Yeah. So it
signal.
was like 1.2, right, Whisker? I think it was closer to that. So I mean,
Yeah.
I put it on the forums and asked people what they thought. There weren't too many ideas except for the prop plug one, and so I think
Right.
I want to take it to
Bring it to the expo,
bring it to the
or
expo
the
to
conference,
right.
and we'll diagnose it.
Right.
Um,
We can even have
okay.
a funeral if necessary, a first spinning funeral. So
But I would try those few different things. Hook it to a different pin, try a different prop.
yep.
Go read the data sheet on the GPS, which is on the Parallax store page for it,
Yep.
and see if it has any kind of like do this to reset it to default or
Okay. Yeah.
send these commands to, it might have something like that in there.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So we're basically out of time here.
Yep.
There's a couple things I wanted to mention right before we get done.
Yep.
We're starting pre-production on Toymaker Television Season 10. And
Holy buckets.
this season, there's going to be some really cool projects. Yeah, so make sure you get over to tymkrs.com, go to the YouTube channel, subscribe,
Retweet
and
share,
yeah, that kind of thing.
comment.
The episodes coming up are going to be really cool. We got some cool projects, and I'm not allowed to say what they are yet.
Some of them use the prop though, right?
Oh yeah, we use the prop in all sorts of things. I've got a really big prop project coming together. If you want to find out more about that, you can check out one of our other audio shows, patchbay.tv. This past week, Shane was asking me all sorts of questions about the synthesizer that has a prop as its brain that I'm working on. So if you're into props and you're into music stuff or are a musician or anything like that, or just interested in the design process, you should check out that episode of Patch Bay. I don't remember which number it is, but it's the most recent one as of this week. Yeah. All right. And we wanted to make a little announcement here. We're probably going to have a couple of episodes right here before we lead to the expo, just because we want to keep everybody informed. But the focus around here is changing a little bit. We're going to be focusing a little bit more on Toymaker television and a little bit less on the podcasts, unless you guys say otherwise. And the way that you can say otherwise, tymkrs.com/donate. If you guys donate, we will work where the money's coming in. That's the only reason that we're not going to be having more episodes, is because we're forced to be spending our time on other things. We'd rather be doing this. You guys let us know that you guys have our back, and we will make sure that you guys have first spins like there's no tomorrow. All right, that's it for us for this week. You can find this show about, what'd you say, Addie, about once a month once we're done with the expo.
Yep.
We'd like to do them every week again. You guys can make that happen, but for now, once a month at firstspin.tv. There's an RSS feed there if you want to have it automatically downloaded whenever we post it. That's it for us. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.